We've got a TPP first to record today. It's a kids podcast.
Somehow, in a season and a half of trailer dropping, plus bonuses, we've never featured a podcast for kids.
Well, here we go. An oversight we are correcting right now.
Welcome to Trailer Park, the podcast trailer podcast. I'm Tim Villegas, and that's Ariel Nissenblatt.
Hi. On this show, we feature a trailer. We hear a bit from the creator of that trailer, and we share our thoughts on that trailer.
We do all of this because we're just really big fans of trailers. So much so that we're starting to become the go-to people to discuss trailers and answer questions about trailer creation. No joke. I give unsolicited advice all the time. I'm having a good time on Threads dispensing trailer advice, and I know you, Ariel, guest on a lot of podcasts to discuss trailers too.
It's true. If you go to podchaser.com, you can see all of our guest appearances. That's a shout out for Podchaser. Anyway, who would have thunk that we would have become these people? But this is our niche now.
This is who we are. Okay, let's get to today's trailer. It comes to us from Willow Belden, an award-winning podcast creator, and the show is called Once Upon a Meadow.
Once Upon a Meadow brings you gentle, uplifting stories for 4 to 9-year-olds, as well as for grown-ups with an inner or actual child. The podcast features fictional stories about a community of animals and plants who live in a meadow and work together to flourish despite their differences.
Let's hit play on that trailer now, and we'll catch you on the other side to discuss.
Once upon a time, there lived a community who shared a meadow with a stream running through it. There was Bear, Crow,
Caw, caw,
Honeybee, and many, many others. The critters in the meadow were friends, and most of the time, they lived together happily. But sometimes there were problems.
People leave behind their trash, and I'm not very good at resisting their discarded food.
Everyone goes down to the stream to drink in the morning and then pees into the water.
Yuck! Yuck!
We all know how hard it can be to solve problems, especially when you're upset. But the plants and animals in this meadow always find a way to work together.
I gathered these saplings from along the stream. Now I'm going to plant them where I cut down too many aspens and willows. I will work with you.
Me too! Plant your tree gently by the pond. Merrily, 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 merrily,
nature will respond. Merrily, 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 nature will respond.
From the creators of the award-winning podcast Out There, you're listening to Once Upon a Meadow. This is a show just for kids like you. We'll share a story about the meadow friends every week, and we'll have activities you can do at home to play along. Follow Once Upon a Meadow wherever you get your podcasts.
Trailers and teasers and episode zeros, oh my. How do we differentiate between them? Maybe it's not actually important?
Yeah, agreed. As far as trailers go, this is a longer one. Tim, you mentioned last week in our Games and Feelings trailer episode that you think 1 minute is the optimal length for you for a trailer to grab your attention. This is obviously longer. This is about 3 minutes long. Was that a bad thing for you?
To be honest, it was kind of a bad thing for me. but it wasn't a bad trailer. So,
Right.
It was well produced. The voice acting is wonderful, fantastic music. So I still think I'm going to stick to my guns here.
1 minute.
I think 1 minute is the optimal.
You love 1 minute.
I love 1 minute trailers. And I think this could have been a 1 minute trailer.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. And in my analysis, which we'll get to in a second, I'll talk a little bit about the scene. There were different scenes. And I think that there could have been one scene or two scenes as opposed to there were a bunch. So yeah,
Right.
Anyway, give us a little bit more of your analysis, Tim. What did you love about the trailer?
Well, it brought me back to when I was a kid and I was listening to radio shows. So I don't know if anyone remembers Adventures in Odyssey, but Adventures in Odyssey was a radio program produced by a nonprofit organization, I think. But that just completely turned me on to the medium of
Wow.
fiction radio storytelling or fiction storytelling, with audio. And the other thing it reminded me of was like a vaudeville performance with the piano and the different characters and like kind of the over the top acting and stuff like that. It was a really good feeling. So I think that if I was 9 years old, I'd be wanting to listen to this podcast.
Yeah, I think the reason that I wanted to differentiate between trailers and teasers and episode zeros is because this to me sounds like a trailer and a teaser and an episode zero. It can sort of do all three of these things. And I think a lot of the people that listen to the show might be wondering, like, what is the difference between all three of those things? And my answer is, like, there is no real difference between all three of those things. The only reason that I would differentiate between the three of them is because it allows you to potentially have 3 different episodes before you launch, which we talk about a lot. When we launched season 1 of this show, we had a pre-trailer, a trailer, and a teaser. But like, truthfully, there's not a set of things that must go into a trailer, a set of things that must go into a teaser, a set of things that must go into an episode zero. It's just sort of the convention of what has become standard. So I think that this is a really effective trailer / teaser / episode zero. It introduces us to the characters, sets the scene. It lets us hear the music. It lets us into the narration style. And I thought that was great. I also think that if they wanted to, they could go back and make a shorter official trailer, 1 minute long.
I think that they may want to do that. Although I think that the purposes of this teaser, it does exactly what they wanted to. Set the scene, set the characters, set the story. And if you like this teaser, you're going to like the podcast. So that's
Right.
kind of the effectiveness and the purpose of it. I just personally think they could have made a 1 minute version and also made it effective.
We come back to this a lot. And I think on our last few trailer analyses, I think you've said something like, that feels like a missed opportunity. And then I say, guess what? Not actually a missed opportunity, because you can always go back and cut a new trailer or cut, a different trailer. I want to talk about a few things that I noticed. So you mentioned this actually on last week's episode for Games and Feelings, but you hear the narrator's voice first and then the music comes in for last week's trailer and for this week's trailer. So last week, Eric Silver of Multitude Productions for Games and Feelings, you hear him say, "Hello, gamers," and then the music starts. Here, you hear Willow's voice first, and then you hear the music, and I thought that was a really effective. It's just a great way to feel welcome into the show. Another thing that I really liked about this trailer is that every character was introduced by a sound, which was really cool. It was really good for kids, I think, and for me. And I felt like you sort of need to listen to this trailer / teaser / episode zero in order to get important information about the show, which is not always the case for trailers. Sometimes people skip them. And in a few minutes, we're going to play a clip from the creators of the show, Willow and Jeff, and they are going to tell us more about this. They're kind of going to debunk what I just said. So that's a little bit of a teaser. I do think that the trailer could have been shorter, sure, but I'm also all for giving kids as much information they need to become podcast listeners. So if it needs to be 3 minutes, great. If it needs to be 5 minutes, great. I just want more kids to listen to podcasts. I also really like that Willow addresses the kid listeners directly, kids like you, instead of like your kids, as if she were talking to parents. There are a few different scenes. I alluded to this before. There's, just off the top of my head, the nature scene, the intro scene, the peeing in the stream scene. I don't necessarily think we need all of them, but also, like I said, it's for the kids, Do it all for the kids.
For kids. Do you ever see the Hudsucker proxy? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, you're saying so many references this episode that I have no idea what they
Okay,
are.
I know it's generational. So the Hudsucker proxy, we're going to cut this. The Hudsucker proxy.
No, we're not.
Is
Why?
The Hudsucker proxy is a movie with Tim Robbins. It's made by the Coen brothers. Very quickly, it's kind of about the origin of hula hoops. And so Tim Robbins, in his pitch for making hula hoops, he's like, for kids.
Oh, I like that. I do like this little aside. We will be keeping this. Another thing that I noticed that the podcast episode artwork is just really beautiful. So definitely check that out.
True.
We'll be linking to that. And then there's a long music outro, which 2 episodes ago, we talked about this in our Dad's Cry 2 episode. I don't need that long of a musical outro. And for the folks at home, we do not record video for this podcast, but Tim just 2 thumbs down to that. So we think cut the music.
Cut the music. All right. Well, we asked Willow and writer-narrator Jeff Lockwood about one of the things that Ariel mentioned about whether or not listeners need to hear the trailer before listening to the show.
Basically, will listeners get that important scene-setting information later on in the episodes if they don't hear the trailer? And here is what Willow and Jeff said.
You do not need to listen to the trailer in order to make sense out of the show. You can jump right into whichever episode you want. There are a few episodes where we've broken one story into 2 episodes, so we end on a cliffhanger, but it'll be obvious which ones those are.
Right. Part 1, part 2. But, that is one of the nice things I think about the podcast is each story stands on its own. There is some continuity across episodes with some characters. A bear occurs in a number of them, and the squirrels occur in a number of them. And we wanted a kind of a combination of both familiar characters and continuity, as well as some new voices and new characters in each episode. So we try to get that hybrid or that mix going of the new and the familiar.
Thank you, Willow, for submitting the trailer for Once Upon a Meadow to our show. She did that by going to trailerparkpodcast.crd.co, and you can too.
If you want to learn more about Once Upon a Meadow and hear from these woodland creatures, go to onceuponameadow.com.
Thank you to everyone who has been leaving us reviews on Apple Podcasts. And thank you to Trier of Pods on Instagram for writing about us. That was amazing.
Wasn't that cool? Yeah.
So cool. Thank you.
I don't even know Trier of Pods.
Me neither. But, now we want to know you. We'll try to include quick thank yous in our episodes when we find instances of people are writing about us in the wild.
The wild, get it? Because of the meadow creatures?
I did not get that until
Clever,
just now. Thank you.
And we've got much more Trailer Park, the podcast trailer podcast, where this episode came from. So join us back here for our next episode and trailer breakdown.
Next week, a trailer about dreams and sleep. So don't sleep on that.
Got questions for us? Comments? Go to fanlist.com/trailerpark to leave a voice note about your favorite podcast trailers. We may play it on the show. You never know. Bye.
Bye. Oh my goodness, you stuck around. You know what the After Records Scratch portion of the show is all about. Our partners, the folks that make this show possible.
We're talking about money.
Did you know that fan engagement is critical in today's podcasting economy? You probably did know that. The more you engage your fans, the more they'll love you, support you, and help you spread the word about your show. FanList makes it really easy for you to set up that whole system. Go to fanlist.com to learn more about creating a fan page for your podcast. And if you want to see a fan list in action, go to fanlist.com/trailerpark. That's us.
We are also sponsored by OSHA. They're our podcast hosting provider. Their interface is extremely easy to use. If you're listening to this right now and you're a podcaster, you probably already have a hosting provider, and you probably think switching over will be annoying and cumbersome, but that is not so. OSHA makes it really easy. And they just launched their podcast search engine tool to the public. Curious about that? We will link you to more information.
Find us on social media. We're at trailerpark_pod on Instagram. You can also email us. That's hello@trailerparkpod.com.
This show is written and edited by us, Ariel Nissenblatt and Tim Viegas.
Our music is from Melody. That's melod.ie.
Our logo is by Kaio Slikta.
We record the show on Squadcast and edit in Descript.
That's it. Happy
trails.
Well, I think we've answered everything, but do you want to finish by singing Plant, Plant, Plant Your Tree Together?
Oh, I don't sing.
Well, neither do I.
Ariel, you'll cut this out.
1, 2, 3. Plant, plant, plant your tree gently by the pond. Merrily, 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 nature will respond.
You're welcome / we're sorry.